Are you struggling to submit as a Christian wife? Are you newlywed and struggling to adjust to marriage? Are you just maybe looking for some advice on how to continue forward being the best biblical wife that you can be? In this episode, we are going to break down some of the things that I struggled with the most in the submission realm as a new wife, and how I've evolved over the years to learn to submit to my husband, and what I do on the days when I find it maybe harder to submit than others. Welcome to the United Christian Marriage Podcast, where we help you build a healthy, united marriage that impacts your family now and for generations to come. If your marriage feels disconnected or like you're the only one trying and he just doesn't get it, then you're in the right place. I'm Micaiah, a Christian marriage coach, trauma-informed mentor, and wife of a blue-collar man. I've been in the trenches too, and I've helped women make small but powerful shifts in their marriage daily, because it's really those little things that make the biggest difference. And I'm here to help you do the same, without the shame, without fluff, and always with Jesus at the center. On this podcast, we talk about biblical truths that you can actually apply to your marriage. We talk about how to communicate effectively and what it takes to create a deeply connected marriage, even if right now you're in a really hard place. I got pregnant at 17, married at 18, and had to build a life and marriage I never saw modeled. Jesus was all I had, and those early years, they were rough. Diapers, emotional outbursts, and total communication breakdowns. But if we can do it, you can too. So grab your coffee or tea and a notebook, and let's dive into today's episode. Okay, so the first thing that I struggled with as a new wife is I really struggled with submitting to my husband when it came to my wardrobe. Now, my husband, he prefers that I dress pretty conservatively. And now I'm very understanding about that now. I'm very cautious of how I dress now. I've grown in my faith as well. So I'm to a point now where I wouldn't even want to dress provocatively or inappropriately, or for me, like, I just get uncomfortable showing too much skin. It convicts me, and I do feel a conviction as a Christian woman to not be a stumbling block for other Christians or even just other men in general, especially since I'm married to a man, and like I've gotten to just hear the real struggle that can be for a man. And my husband and me are very honest about like those sorts of things, like where temptation lies or where we've struggled in the past or present. And so I've gotten to see that, and I also have just learned a lot about various things between, a lot of marriages are hurting from porn addictions, or sometimes there's other types of infidelity. Sometimes it's not that at all. It's just different sexual issues. So I've done, some research on that, and just all of what I've learned has continued to reinforce that conviction that there is a reason that the Lord calls us to modesty as women. But when we first got married, we got married young, right? If you haven't heard our marriage story, we were married at 18. And when we got married, I had to kind of just change my entire wardrobe. And it was very strange. I mean, I was also a new mom at this time, so I was adjusting to like having changes in my body postpartum as well. And as a teenager, I kind of grew up like feeling like if I didn't show skin, then I wasn't beautiful, if that makes sense. Like, I had tied this way of dressing to my self-worth instead of tying my self-worth to Jesus. And I didn't know how to dress modestly in a way that I felt confident and cute. And so that's kind of like a journey that I had to go on. My husband, he's very into just the basic country look, like a button up or t-shirt and jeans and a belt and boots. And so he kind of pulled me into that stuff, and it wasn't forced at all. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, my husband made me dress like this. No, I actually really liked the look on him, and I thought I would like it on me. And so I like slowly started buying more like bootcut jeans, and I got my first pair of cowgirl boots, and that look actually worked for me for a long time. Even while I was pregnant, I just would wear my husband's jeans and then they would fit me around my big belly and it would be fine. So that helped for a while. And then, yeah, it's just been a testing over the years, trying to figure out what works. I recently just did a DIY color analysis on myself through ChatGPT. So I've been like kind of going through that, trying to figure out what my best colors are. And right now I'm in a season of hoping to build a capsule wardrobe. But I know when we first got married, that was not even in my mind because we were like full on baby mode, you know, like so much attention pouring into our little ones. And then we got pregnant again. And in the very beginning, we had Levi's injury. So that made us get financially behind. And then, you know, clothes were more like buying clothes was a luxury, not a need at that time. So now that we're kind of in a better spot, I'm looking to change some of those styles, experiment with things. I actually just bought my first pair of skinny jeans that I haven't bought a pair of skinny jeans in a really long time because I was wearing all boot cut, but now that like it's getting hot out again and the current styles I had, I just wasn't feeling like flattered me in my current body style that I have right now after 2 babies. So I went out and got some different things. We actually just went to Goodwill and I ended up finding a pair of jeans that I love. So anyways, I'll stop ranting on that. But the point of this is to say that I know I'm probably not the only one who got married and then me and my spouse had different ideas about how I should be dressing. And I know at first my attitude about it was like, well, I can wear whatever I want. Like, you're not going to tell me what to wear. It's not your body. Like, I almost went into the rabbit trail being like, oh, you're being controlling. But I kind of knew better than to go there at that point because that's almost like a trigger for my husband to say he's controlling. It really does. It makes him pause and it doesn't really make him angry, but like he takes it really seriously if I say that because he's been told that in the past, almost like abusively by exes and things to the point where it was like everything he did, they called it controlling. And so he does take it seriously. He doesn't want to be controlling. And so I think I was just wary of like using that if I didn't really, really mean it. And so all that to say, the Lord really did work on my heart through this. And yes, it was also my husband saying things, nudging me along. But I feel like that wouldn't have been enough if the Holy Spirit hadn't also like stepped in. And I wanted to please my husband, but I also like, I don't know, I almost had like an all or nothing mindset about it. Like, if I can't wear these clothes, then like I'm going to have to wear a trash bag. Like, you know, it was kind of silly at the time, but. And then the other thing that I feel like I struggled to submit with was how our days were going to flow. Like, I've always been more of the, I don't know what the word is. I'm more the planner. Like, I like to make the routines and the schedules and, oh, we're doing this. And the problem was I wasn't really consistent because I didn't have a system that worked at that time. Now I've gone through 2 different courses and I've really like worked on nailing this down. And I feel like we're just like starting to get a really good flow. And I actually just scaled back a lot of my work hours so I can focus more on my family and healing my nervous system through just like slowing down, doing more breath work, less rushing. I've from the beginning of my marriage, one of the biggest problems that I've had is just a rushed attitude. Like, I feel like this need, this like anxiousness, like, oh, we need to do this now. We got to do this thing. It needs to happen now. And then I'll get so anxious about it that I'll just put it out of mind and completely forget about it. And then when it comes up again, it's like, oh my gosh, we need to do this now all over again, right? And so then I was just stressing my husband out with that also. And it was like taking a big toll on both of our nervous systems when I was like constantly in this state of overwhelm where I'm like, come on, we got to do this thing right now as soon as I remember it. And he's like, I just sat down. I'm just relaxing. And so there was that, but also just me constantly changing the schedules, us not sticking to them, life throwing us curveballs, and then they just get thrown out. Like, there was a lot of that, and also like me trying to force my husband to do things he didn't want to do. And many of you probably know, but like when you try to force anyone to do something they don't want to do, it makes them not want to do it even more. And it's really not helpful. I like to use the example that when I was young, I wanted to do ballet so bad. I was like dreaming of being a ballerina, and I was like, oh, I think I really want to do this. Like, I didn't want to go professional or anything. I just wanted to do it for fun. And then I was actually getting close to telling my mom, like asking her if she could sign me up for classes. And then my mom told me that she signed me and my sister up for classes and I had to do it. And the fact that she said I had to do it, all of a sudden, it like flipped a switch in my brain. I didn't want to do it anymore. And I dragged my feet and I ended up dropping out of that class like halfway through. And so I like to use that example because we really haven't changed much. Like, yeah, that's quote unquote how kids act, but that's how adults act too. It just shows up a little differently sometimes. Like, and with my husband, I've learned he's that exact same way. He just doesn't want to be told what to do. Now, there's exceptions to everything, right? Like, there is times where I still will say something wrong and it comes out more like telling him what to do than it should have come out, like asking him and telling him how much I would love it if he contributed to this area. And there's times I do it, I say it wrong and he still does it anyways because he gives me grace and he's amazing. But like, we should try our best to say it the right way and to speak words of life over our spouses. Plus, if it's just not effective, then why keep doing it, right? The definition of insanity is to continue doing something that does not work. And for those of you who are in the newlywed stage, like, you will learn as you go what does or doesn't work. So don't let that stress you out too much. Just take note. I think if I could give you any advice, it'd be aware. Like, as you're looking at your routines, as you're looking at your schedules, as you're looking at how your nights and your days together are flowing, like, what do you want that to look like? And take note of what's working, what's not working. That's why I love keeping my journal, because it helps me stay like grounded and rooted, and it helps me remember things better. But also it's just like super good to keep track of, like, is this working? Is this not working? Do I need to look back at this later? That sort of thing. And then the other thing that before I switch to the next thing, I wanted to say that now me and my husband have actually worked on our schedule together, on our routines, our systems together. And so while I brought a lot of the ideas in and I was like, okay, I bought these courses, I went through these things to figure this out, and this is what they say we should do, and this is what it looks like, and I've had to explain that to him. So there was some of me leading in that way, I guess, but then I invited him into it. I didn't just keep him out of it, which at first I did. I just was like, okay, this is what I'm doing. Jump in. Good luck. This is how our evening's looking. And that completely overwhelmed him, and it was not good. And so then I changed that up, and I sat down, and we've had many conversations since then. Like, what do we want this to look like? And then we try to get this planning done every weekend, so that we're resetting for the next week, and we know what our week's going to look like and what our intentions are, what commitments we have, that sort of thing. And that's been really helpful for us to get to do that together. And at first my husband hated it and he dragged his feet. He still does sometimes if we have to push it to Sunday, because then it cuts into our Sabbath. But if we can get it in on a Friday or a Saturday and get that done, then it's really not bad for either of us. And I just started noticing, like, okay, he took over the meal planning and the meal list, so I let him manage that. I do my paper planner and I reset the Google Calendar, and then I just ask him that he looks at our Google Calendar and that he fixes the meal board, that sort of thing. And then it's a lot easier. We like kind of divide and conquer, whereas before I was trying to like have him sit down and do all my parts with me and I do his parts with him, and that was too much. So anyways, so those are like the two main areas that I struggled to submit. I would say, there was probably a lot more that is escaping my mind right now. But I just wanted to kind of go over, like, if I had to give you any biblical advice as a newlywed, other than what I've already given you, what would it be? And I would say to communicate with I statements and say I would love, instead of starting the sentences with some of those more aggressive, combative things. We really want to notice when we're being combative, or when we're being, if we have contention, right? If it feels like we don't like the other person, that's when we need to pause and we need to reset our heart. And so that's when we need to have scripture, or we need to have prayer, or we need to have these thoughts that we go back to help us reset our mind and renew our mind, so that we can come back into the conversation with the right heart posture. We need to maybe not talk about things right before bed, in bed, that are going to be super difficult or upsetting. I know that was something that I really struggled with as a newlywed, and this was probably something I could even say I struggled with submission, is my husband does not like talking about difficult things right before bed, in bed. Understandably. He works a very long day in a very physical, demanding job. So his sleep is very needed. He usually gets way less than he needs. So we try to be cautious of that. I feel like we do really good now about not having serious conversations in bed, but that's because I've learned when to bring them up, and knowing that I know when I can have them brings me peace. And so if you're struggling with that, I would just say, ask your husband, when is a good time for us to do this? Can we set aside, maybe, like, for us, I know often it's like nap times on a Sunday, or maybe date night. That's a little risky, but if there's no other time, then it can happen there. Just like, when can I bring this up if there's no other time and I really need to speak to you about something? And then I would say really watching your mindset. Marriage mindset is very important. It's been one of the things that has helped me and my husband so much. It's just like watching out for those all or nothing thinking, or are we having a fixed mindset or a growth mindset in this area, in learning things like negativity bias and cognitive bias, and how is that happening in our marriage? What are the thoughts that keep repeating themselves? What are we looking for evidence of in our marriage? And so those sorts of things have been transformational for us. And so I encourage you, if you want to learn more about that, then come into my group coaching program, apply for that in the show notes below, because that is where I teach how to have a healthy marriage mindset, how to renew your mind in Christ so that you can thrive in your marriage, how to take every thought captive and make it obedient to Christ, right? And so that's an amazing resource where I actually work with you guys. We have weekly group coaching calls and training videos. And if you guys pay in full, then you get a physical workbook in the mail as well. Okay, so to wrap up here, I want to say, what is like the 5 results that you'll get if you actually work on these things, if you actually pour into this? Now, I don't know if you guys have kids or not, so like some of these may or may not apply to you. Like one of them is it's parenting specific or so. But for us, we went into marriage with a child, so it was a little bit of a different dynamic. We did not do it the traditional way. And so the 5 results that I saw in my own life and I've seen in other people's is 1, having a joyful Christ-centered home, or should I say building a joyful Christ-centered home. 2, enjoying being their spouse again. I know like when me and my husband, we never really had that like honeymoon phase necessarily. My husband got injured, and so then we actually spent a lot of time just apart, completely disconnected, because he was constantly sleeping or working or using substances to help with the pain because it was so excruciating. He had a lot of nerve damage, and it was not fun. And so him and I really grew apart in that time. If anything, it was like the opposite of a honeymoon phase. So after that, we got to learn to like actually enjoy being each other's spouse again, and like what does that look like. And it was like almost like our marriage got delayed. But we definitely had some testing of the in sickness or health part of our vows there. And then the 3rd thing is parent in agreement with each other and the Lord, learning to control our mind, learning to renew our mind, learning to grow closer to the Lord and closer to each other has been transformational in this, and submission was a big part of that. And then 4 is we've learned to be able to handle anything that comes our way as a team, not as just like individuals, but as us, as the Grays. And then 5 is to break the spiritual strongholds off of our family line. And a bonus one, I guess you could say, is kind of to fall in love again, like just to have fun. I feel like we've been through some very serious portions of our life, and so sometimes it's fun to just let loose and have fun and just be us. And that can be so hard to do sometimes, unfortunately. Anyways, I won't go down that. That could be a whole nother podcast episode. Anyways, but so if you guys don't want to do this alone, this is the last call to book a free coaching call. Then the coaching calls will be going up, I guess you could say, from 0. I'll be charged from now on. So go ahead and book one of those last free coaching call spots. I would love to help you with whatever you're struggling with right now. And I hope this episode's a blessing to you guys. So have a great day. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope you got so much value out of it. And if you loved this episode, could you do me a quick favor and click 5 stars and leave me a review? It would do wonders for spreading the podcast out to other people who need it, and it only takes a few seconds. If you have an additional few seconds, why don't you go ahead and screenshot the episode and share it to your stories so we can spread the message and get more families healed. Thank you, and until next time, I will be praying for you, and I hope you have a blessed day. Bye.